Hello and welcome to the podcast. This is Ron's Amazing Stories. We have stories that should thrill you a little and chill you a little.
It's amazing.
What you'll hear are adventures sent in by you guys, classic stories from the pulp mags, and episodes from the golden age of radio. We have special segments like Ghost Stories with Sylvia.
That's amazing.
And Paranormal Expeditions.
I think we're going to have a lot of fun.
So settle in for the next hour and enjoy the show. One more thing. You just might want to prepare yourself to be taken away from today.
Another 5-minute mystery.
This 5-minute mystery is being brought to you by Ray Bradbury, who once said, "I have never listened to anyone who has criticized my taste in space travel, sideshows, or gorillas. When this occurs, I pack up my dinosaurs and leave the room." Words to live by.
In a small private lodge high on a mountaintop in the Lake Placid region, Alice Herrick toys nervously with a corsage of orchids pinned to her luxurious fur wrap, as her husband, his broad back against the cabin door, twirls a small revolver on his fingertips.
You're a fool, Charles. I don't know what you want of me. I'll do anything. Anything you say.
There's nothing I want of you now, Alice, but to have you dead.
It's money you want, isn't it, Charles? All right. You can have every cent I have.
Oh, no, Alice. This is it.
You haven't got the nerve. You haven't got the nerve to kill me. You'd never even...
You've underestimated me for the last time, Alice. And this time, it was fatal. I can't believe it.
Here, Mr. Herrick, you'd better sit down. Over here by the fire.
Thank you. I guess I'd better. Where was she, Sheriff, when you found her? Please, I want to know everything.
Well, she was sprawled in that chair over there by the desk. The gun had obviously fallen out of her hand onto the floor.
How long do you think she'd been dead, Sheriff?
The coroner said about 48 hours.
2 days. And all that time, Alice was lying here dead. I didn't even know.
Yes, the ironic part of it is we might not have even found her when we did. The skiers who reported it to me had passed your place earlier in the day and had seen your wife sitting there through the window and thought nothing of it. The gun was on the side away from the house. About dusk, they passed again, and when they saw she hadn't moved, they came up for a closer look.
They saw the gun then?
No, it wasn't until they noticed the wilted orchid on her dress and a few fallen petals beside her on the floor that they knew it was a woman and that she'd been dead for some time.
How ghastly.
The thing we've got to find out, Mr. Herrick, is why. Why should your wife decide to take her life?
I don't know. She often liked to come up here alone, and this time I thought it was no different.
You were never worried about your wife being up here alone?
Alice was a very independent woman, Sheriff. She wouldn't allow worrying over. Besides, we two were the only ones who had keys, and it was as safe as any place could be.
Then you'd say we could rule out the possibility of anyone's having gotten in and killed her.
Killed her? But Alice committed suicide. You said so yourself.
Well, we don't like to overlook anything.
But no one could have known she was up here. Besides, you said the place was locked when you found her. There was no robbery. What would be the motive?
Maybe that's the one thing you can tell us, Mr. Herrick. The motive, I mean.
I don't understand. What are you driving at?
Just this, Mr. Herrick. Your wife did not commit suicide. She was murdered, and you're under arrest for that same murder.
Why did the sheriff arrest Charles Herrick for murder? What was the clue? In a moment we'll hear, but first...
Well, that sure took a turn.
Agreed. They spent a lot of time telling us about the scene. There must be a clue in that.
Not sure we need it. After all, we witnessed the murder and...
Ron, please stop.
Now what?
This was a story, and the police don't know that we heard it.
Oh, yeah. Well, then I'm stumped.
I must confess that I too am bemused.
Ooh, so fancy.
And now, back to our story.
That was a nice, neat little job of stage setting you did, Mr. Herrick, to make your wife look like a suicide. Gun carelessly dropped under her lifeless hand, wilted petals fallen from her orchid corsage. But no one else could have gotten in because the door was locked, and the only other key with you. A perfect suicide, except for one thing. You shouldn't have been so exacting as to have strewn fallen petals from your wife's flowers, Mr. Herrick, or didn't you know orchids do not shed their petals?
Well, no, actually, I don't know, and there's no way I would be able to solve this one.
Orchids are a funny lot. So many varieties and odd shapes. No wonder we were bamboozled.
Is that really a word?
I am not sure. I have never looked it up.
I'll have to do that sometime.
What's that you say?
Hello, and welcome to the podcast. On the show today, we celebrate Raymond Bradbury, author, poet, scriptwriter, and of course hero to anyone that has read one of his books. Ray was born August 20th, and this would have been his 101st birthday. I have tried to make him part of the proceedings, and I think you're going to enjoy the results. We have 3 stories from you guys, and an adaptation of probably his most famous work, The Martian Chronicles. Ray Bradbury was a prolific and influential author with a career that spanned decades. From his first published story in 1938, Hollerbochen's Dilemma, to his Hugo Award-winning novel Fahrenheit 451, the author was the master of the science fiction genre. What you may not know about him was just how much he loved the story, which of course makes him perfect for Ron's Amazing Stories. So let's get it going with this one from Audible. Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/Ron's Amazing Stories. They have over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, computer, Kindle. Whatever you have, you can listen to Audible on it. So what am I listening to? The Martian Chronicles by Ray Bradbury and narrated by Mark Boyette. Over the past few years, we've had many stories from this book on the podcast. In fact, we're going to feature one of them today. More about that later. The Martian Chronicles is a science fiction anthology published in 1950 by Ray Bradbury. It chronicles the exploration and settlement of Mars by Earthmen leaving a troubled planet. The book is a work of dystopian fiction and horror that projects human society immediately after World War II into a technologically advanced future where the amplification of humanity's potential to create and destroy have both miraculous and devastating consequences. The book, as I've said, is a collection of short stories. Mars is a place of hope, dreams, crystal pillars, and fossil seas, soon to face its greatest adversary, the Earthmen. Here is a clip from the story titled February 2030, Ella.
They had a house of crystal pillars on the planet Mars, by the edge of an empty sea. And every morning you could see Mrs. K eating the golden fruits that grew from the crystal walls, or cleaning the house with handfuls of magnetic dust, which, taking all dirt with it, blew away on the hot wind. Afternoons, when the fossil sea was warm and motionless, and the wine trees stood stiff in the yard, and the little distant Martian bone town was all enclosed and no one drifted out their doors, you could see Mr. K himself in his room, reading from a metal book with raised hieroglyphs over which he brushed his hand, as one might play a harp. And from the book, as his fingers stroked, a voice sang, a soft, ancient voice, which told tales of when the sea was red steam on the shore, and ancient men had carried clouds of metal insects and electric spiders into battle. Mr. and Mrs. K had lived by the Dead Sea for 20 years, and their ancestors had lived in the same house, which turned and followed the sun, flower-like, for 10 centuries. Mr. and Mrs. K were not old. They had the fair, brownish skin of the true Martian, the yellow coin eyes, the soft, musical voices. Once they had liked painting pictures with chemical fire, swimming in the canals in the seasons when the wine trees filled them with green liquors, and talking into the dawn together by the blue phosphorus portraits in the speaking room. They were not happy now. This morning, Mrs. K stood between the pillars, listening to the desert sand's heat melt into yellow wax and seemingly run on the horizon. Something was going to happen. She waited. She watched the blue sky of Mars as if it might at any moment grip in on itself, contract, and expel a shining miracle down upon the sand. Nothing happened. Tired of waiting, she walked through the misting pillars. A gentle rain sprang from the fluted pillar tops, cooling the scorched air falling gently on her. On hot days, it was like walking in a creek. The floors of the house glittered with cool streams. In the distance, she heard her husband playing his book steadily, his fingers never tired of the old songs. Quietly, she wished he might one day again spend as much time holding and touching her like a little harp as he did his incredible books. But no, she shook her head, an imperceptible, forgiving shrug. Her eyelids closed softly down upon her golden eyes. Marriage made people old and familiar while still young. She lay back in a chair that moved to take her shape even as she moved. She closed her eyes tightly and nervously. The dream occurred. Her brown fingers trembled, came up, grasped at the air. A moment later, she sat up, startled, gasping. She glanced about swiftly, as if expecting someone there before her. She seemed disappointed. The space between the pillars was empty. Her husband appeared in a triangular door. "Did you call?" he asked, irritably. "No," she cried. "I thought I heard you cry out." "Did I? I was almost asleep and had a dream." "In the daytime, you don't often do that." She sat as if struck in the face by the dream. "How strange, how very strange," she murmured. "The dream." "Oh?" He evidently wished to return to his book. "I dreamed about a man." "A man?" "A tall man, 6 feet 1 inch tall." "How absurd. A giant, a misshapen giant." "Somehow," she tried the words, "he looked all right, in spite of being tall, and he had, oh, I know you'll think it's silly, he had blue eyes." "Blue eyes? Gods!" cried Mr. K. "What'll you dream next? I suppose he had black hair." "How did you guess?" She was excited. "I picked the most unlikely color," he replied coldly. "Well, black it was," she cried. "And he had a very white skin. Oh, he was most unusual. He was dressed in a strange uniform, and he came down out of the sky and spoke pleasantly to me."
Ray Bradbury was a storyteller without peer, a poet of the possible, and undisputably one of America's most beloved authors. In a much celebrated literary career that spanned 6 decades, he produced an astonishing body of work, including Fahrenheit 451, Something Wicked This Way Comes, essays, theatrical works, screenplays, and teleplays. The Illustrated Man, Dandelion Wine, The October Country, and numerous other superb short story collections. But of all the dazzling stars in the vast Bradbury universe, none shines more brightly than these masterful chronicles of Earth's settlement of the Fourth World from the Sun. The Martian Chronicles. And you can have this book today. Here's what Audible has set up for us. They are offering a free audiobook and 30 days to give you the opportunity to check out their service. This includes free access to the Audible Plus catalog, which is updated monthly with new titles. To download your free audiobook, go to audibletrial.com/Ron's Amazing Stories. Again, that's audibletrial.com/Ron's Amazing Stories, and you can get the Martian Chronicles today. Thank you, Audible. And now, it's time for your stories.
These are your stories, sent by you, for you.
When asked his thoughts on science fiction, Ray Bradbury had this to say. "I don't write science fiction," he said. "Science fiction is a depiction of the real. Fantasy is a depiction of the unreal." So from that, we can conclude that Ray wrote fantasy, which when you think about it, makes a lot of sense. Unlike our stories for today, which are real head-scratchers. Like this one, sent in by Dennis Duquesne from Seattle, Washington. I will forego reading the entire email, but he did ask the question, can ghosts dial a phone? Dennis has called his story, The Ghoulish Caller. One night, a friend rushed me out of the house to catch the opening act at a local bar's music night. After a few drinks, I realized my phone wasn't in my pocket. I checked the table we were sitting at, the bar, the bathrooms, and after no luck, I used my friend's phone to call mine. After 2 rings, someone answered and gave out a low, raspy giggle and then hung up. I tried several times, but they never answered again. I eventually gave it up as a lost cause and headed home. When I got home, I found my phone lying on my nightstand, right where I had left it. Dennis Duquesne, Seattle, Washington. Well, that is creepy as all get out, Dennis, and it proves the point that you should never leave your phone at home alone. Thank you for sending this one in, and to answer your question, I'm not sure if ghosts can dial phones, but I am sure that I don't want to know. A lot of the stories we get here, in fact maybe all of them, people are surprised by what happens to them. How they react becomes a learning experience. Ray Bradbury had this to say about that. Living at risk is jumping off the cliff and building your wings on the way down. So many times how we treat a situation is as much important as the problem itself. Like this story sent in by Leo Benson from Los Angeles. Hello, Ron. Thank you for your show and a chance to share my strange story. I was walking on the beach a few years ago. It was pretty late at night and I was alone. Not the first time I've done this, and surely won't be the last. But next time I will be a bit better prepared. The seas were fairly rough that night, so I made sure that I stayed away from the water. I was minding my own business when I heard this strange scream. As you know, sound on the beach can be a funny thing, so at first I didn't know which way to turn. So I closed my eyes and figured out where to go. What I found was unreal. I saw a log with a net attached to it. Flapping violently was a fin. I ran over expecting to find a sea lion or some other fish trapped. What I found was quite different. It was a human, sort of, but more fish than anything. The face was smooth but featureless. Tears, at least I think they were tears, were streaming down its face. I could feel that it was in pain and very scared. I tried to remove the netting, but it was too thick. Then I remembered I had passed a bottle a while back, and I ran back to get it. I broke it on the log and cut the creature free. Instantly it rolled back into the water and was gone. I just stood there for a very long time, not sure if I believed what had just happened. I wish that there was more to this story, but that's it. Since that time, I always carry a pocket knife, just in case. Leo Benson, Los Angeles. Okay, that is the strangest tale that I've ever heard. In folklore, mermaids are often associated with misfortune and death, luring errant sailors off course and even into rocky shoals. I think your story adds some credibility to that fact, and they just might be real. However, in this case, you're not doomed to misfortune, and I think you may have made a friend in the sea. Thank you for sharing your story, Leo. We are an impossibility in an impossible universe. Ray Bradbury said that, and when you take it in context with our stories, it makes these strange things possible. We can say that we don't believe this or that can't be true, but in truth, what in the universe is absolute? This one from Alison Flores tests the boundaries of this premise in a story titled Grandma's Rocking Chair. When I was very young, my grandmother passed away. I met her only a few times. The concept of death was not something I understood, and I wasn't even sure what was going on or why everyone was so sad. I remember walking through the funeral, looking at everyone crying and feeling so lost. Feeling like I had something wrong with me. Why am I not crying? What is wrong with me? I thought to myself. This funeral was far from where I lived, so we flew across country to get there. We were staying in my grandmother's house that she lived in and raised 4 kids in, all by herself. I was staying with my mom, and I must have been about 5 or 6 years old. According to her, I got up in the middle of the night and asked my mother if it was all right if I went to the bathroom, to which she, of course, said yes. I went to the bathroom and my mom heard me talking to someone. She thought that I was probably talking to myself. When I got back to her, I said, "Mommy, there's a lady sitting on the rocking chair outside the room." My mom, for obvious reasons, freaked out. She walked out of the room, and of course nobody was there. But the rocking chair was sitting in the middle of the hallway. She put the chair back where it belonged and went back to bed. Later that night, my sister came into the room and woke us both up. She said that there was a banging on her door. My mom came out, and in the middle of the hallway was that same rocking chair. This is absolutely true, and my mother confirms all of it. I like to think of it as Grandma watching over us that night. Alison Flores, Kentucky. That, Alison, is a great story, and it does seem very likely that your grandma was right there watching out to make sure that your stay in her home was a good one. Truly amazing. Well, that's it for this time. I want to leave you with one more quote from the great Ray Bradbury. I've always found this one useful, especially when I'm picking stories for this show. He once said, "My stories run up and bite me on the leg. I respond by writing everything down that goes on during the bite. When I finish, the idea lets go and runs off." Thank you, Ray, for being part of These Are Your Stories. If you have a story that you want to share, head to the main website at ronsamazingstories.com and click on the story submission banner. Leave your story, give it a title, and tell me where you're from. I'll read it if I can. Are you ready for another story? This one is being brought to us by Gladys Goodies. Good treats for your dog to eat. They use all natural products with no sugar, preservatives, salts, or harmful ingredients. So check out their online store at GladysGoodies.com. That is GladysGoodies.com. And don't forget to use our very own promo code, RONS, to get a 20% discount on all of your purchases. That is RONS. Thank you, Gladys. Well, as you might have guessed this time, we are featuring a radio adaptation of the Martian Chronicles. There were many of these throughout the golden age of radio, but most took individual chapters from the book and presented them as complete stories. What we have today is the entire book in 30 minutes. Sound impossible? Well, it should be, but they did it. And they managed to keep Ray Bradbury's intent alive. The production comes from the OTR series Dimension X and comes complete with the original commercials and radio spots. So what we really have is a time machine taking us back to August 18th, 1950.
By transcription. It's National Wheaties Week. Yes, it's National Wheaties Week, and Wheaties present Dimension X.
On stage tonight, Dimension X, another in the Wheaties big parade of exciting half-hour presentations.
It's National Wheaties Week, the week to buy Wheaties and eat Wheaties and enjoy them as never before. The time to really find out what difference a good breakfast with Wheaties can make. You know, you're getting protein when you dip into a bowl full of Wheaties. You're getting whole wheat minerals and vitamins. You're getting whole wheat energy. Yup, there's a whole kernel of wheat in every Wheaties flake. That's how a better breakfast, beginning with Wheaties, can help you step lively all morning long. And that's why all over this big country, folks are celebrating National Wheaties Week and stepping lively. So how about it? Get out the big cereal bowl and help celebrate Breakfast of Champions. Pour out those golden flakes, put on the milk, put on the fruit, and let's have National Wheaties Week. You ready? Let's go.
Tonight, Dimension X presents The Martian Chronicles, a dramatization of the new novel by one of our most brilliant young science fiction writers, Ray Bradbury. The Martian Chronicles. January in the year 1999. 1 minute it was Ohio winter with doors closed, the panes blind with frost, icicles fringing every roof, children skiing on snowy slopes. And then a long wave of warmth crossed the small town, a flooding sea of hot air.
William McClellan, you come back here. You know you can't go out in winter without a coat. You want to catch your death of cold?
But it isn't cold. It's warm outside. It's rocket summer.
Rocket summer?
You know, like Indian summer.
The rocket lay on the launching field, blowing out pink clouds of fire and heat, cracking the icicles, melting the snow, making summer with every breath of its mighty exhausts. It seared the faces of the watching crowd and drove them back. And then they saw the red fire and heard the big sound as the silver rocket shot up toward Mars and left them behind on an ordinary Monday morning on the ordinary planet Earth. They lived in a house of crystal pillars on the planet Mars by the edge of an empty sea. And every morning you could see Ela eating the golden fruits that grew from the crystal walls, or her husband sitting alone in his room reading from a singing metal book, over which he brushed his hand as one might play a harp. Ela and her husband were not old. Once they had liked painting pictures with chemical fire, swimming in the canals when the wine trees filled them with green liquors, and talking into the dawn together. But no more. Marriage sometimes makes people old and familiar while still young, and Ela was not happy now. This morning she sat dreaming between the crystal pillars and wished that somehow a miracle might happen. And then suddenly...
Ela, did you call?
No.
I thought I heard you cry out.
Did I? I was almost asleep and had a dream.
In the daytime? You don't often do that.
Strange. How very strange. I dreamed about a man. A tall man. 6 feet tall.
Oh, how absurd. He'd be a giant, a misshapen giant.
I know. And yet somehow he looked quite handsome. He was dressed in a strange uniform. And he came down out of the sky in a long silver craft.
Out of the sky? What nonsense.
And he spoke pleasantly to me in another language. But somehow I understood him with my mind. Telepathy, I suppose.
Oh, really, Ela?
And he said, I've come from the 3rd planet in my ship. My name is Nathaniel York.
A stupid name. Who ever heard of a name like that?
Perhaps they have names like that on Earth.
That's ridiculous, Ela. Everyone knows the 3rd planet is incapable of supporting life. There's too much oxygen in their atmosphere.
I suppose. But haven't you ever wondered if... Well, wouldn't it be fascinating if there were people there, and they traveled through space in some sort of ship?
Really, Ela? You know I hate this emotional wailing. Now, let's get on with our work.
Evening came. The twin white moons of Mars were rising, and the house closed itself in like a giant flower. A wind blew among the pillars, stirring Ela's russet hair, crooning softly in her ear. And it was then that she began singing the song.
Drink to me only thine eyes, and I will pledge with mine.
Ela, what's that song?
I don't know.
What do you mean you don't know? I've never heard it before. Did you compose it?
No. Yes. No, I don't know, really. I don't even know what the words are. They're in another language. It was part of the dream I had, I guess.
Oh. You know, you haven't been yourself lately. It might do you good if we went away to the Blue Mountains for a week or so.
What?
Did you hear what I said?
I'm sorry. I was watching the sky.
You're certainly interested in the sky tonight.
It's very beautiful.
Well, what about my suggestion? Shall we leave for the Blue Mountains in the morning?
You mean go away now? Oh, no.
No? Why not? Why don't you want to go?
I don't know. I just don't want to, that's all. Oh, leave a kiss in the cup, and I'll not ask for...
Ela, I'm sick of that silly song. It's late. Let us sleep.
From the crystal walls poured a soft carpeting of mist to support Ela where she lay down to sleep. But through the night she tossed restlessly, until just at dawn the dream recurred.
Ela, wake up.
What? Oh, what is it?
You've been dreaming again. You talked in your sleep.
Did I?
Yes. What were you dreaming?
Oh, the ship. It came from the sky again. And the tall man stepped out and talked with me, telling me little jokes and laughing.
What else happened?
And then this Captain York... Oh, I can't. It's all so silly.
Tell me!
He said I was beautiful. And then he kissed me.
I thought so. What else?
Why, Eel, you're so bad-tempered. It's only a dream.
Is it? You know I can read your mind. You can't keep secrets from me.
Well, all that happened was this Captain York told me... Well, he told me he'd take me away in his ship into the sky. Take me back to his planet with him. It's quite ridiculous, really.
Ridiculous, is it? You should have heard yourself. Fawning on him, talking to him, singing with him all night. In your dream, he landed in Green Valley, didn't he?
Please.
And he told you he was coming today.
Yes. But what's come over you? It was only a dream. You can't be jealous of that.
No, I suppose not. Forgive me. I'm being childish.
Eel, you're sick. You've been working too hard.
No, I'm all right. But perhaps you're right. Maybe I could use a little relaxation.
Yes.
I think I'll take the morning off and go hunting.
Hunting?
Yes, in Green Valley.
Numbly, she watched him go to a closet and draw forth an evil-looking weapon. And then her husband was gone, walking toward Green Valley. And Ela waited, watching the sky for an unknown thing, trembling with a nameless fear. And then it happened. A whirring, rushing sound. The warmth as of a giant fire passing in the air. The gleam of metal in the sky.
He's come. It's true. The dream is true.
The rocket vanished over the hill. The sky was empty again. And trembling, Ela waited again, looking toward Green Valley and seeing nothing. Listening for sounds and hearing nothing. Until a shot sounded, very sharply, the sound of the evil weapon.
Oh, no. No.
Her body jerked with the sound, and she wanted to scream and never stop screaming. For now she knew the dream could never come true. There was nothing left but the song, the strange and fine and beautiful song.
Drink to me only with thine eye, and I will pledge with mine, or leave a kiss within the cup.
But still the rockets came. The next ship came down from the stars and the black velocities and the silent gulfs of space, and landed by night near a Martian city. The men made their way to the outer rim of the dreaming city, and then Jeff Spender went in to reconnoiter, while the others watched and waited for something to stir in the haunted city, some gray form to rise, some voice to break the unearthly stillness. Where were the people? Where were the Martians? Nothing stirred to disturb the silence until...
Halt! Who goes there?
Don't shoot!
Hold it, Parker. Let's Spender and his party. They're coming back.
Captain Wilder!
Over here!
Well, Captain, we've searched the city. People were living here last week.
People?
Martians.
Where are they now?
Dead.
Dead? What did they die of?
You won't believe it, Captain. Chickenpox.
Good Lord, no.
Yes. No resistance to an Earth disease, I guess.
So the other rocket did get through to Mars.
It looks like it, Captain. God only knows what the Martians did to them. But at least we know what they did to the Martians.
You mean they're all dead?
Yes. This planet is through.
Hey! You hear that, guys? We're safe! Break out a bottle, Cookie. Let's have a drink to celebrate.
Stop it, Parkhill. Put down that bottle.
What's eating you, Spender? The planet's ours now. We got to christen it, don't we? I christen thee the city of... I christen... Hey, Park Hill City.
Park Hill, I warned you!
All right, Spender, that's enough.
That'll cost you a $50 fine. Porky McClure, take care of Parkhill. Spender, you come with me. All right, Spender, why did you hit him?
I don't know, Captain. I was ashamed, I guess. Ashamed of Sam Parkhill and the noise and the spectacle the whole crew is making.
It's been a long trip. It's only natural they'd want to have their fling.
Yes, but where's their sense of what's right? Their respect for what's happened here? Captain, a race builds itself for 1,000,000 years, refines itself, builds cities like this one, does everything it can to give itself respect and beauty, and then it dies. Of what? Not anything fine or majestic or fitting, but a dirty little thing like chicken pox. And Sam Parkhill wants to celebrate.
I know, Spender, but you've got to remember you've a different way of seeing things.
I'm seeing things all right. I'm seeing what we'll do to Mars. We'll rip it up, rip the skin off, ruin it the way we've ruined our own planet. Captain, look at the city. It may be the last time you'll ever see it this way.
Beautiful in the moonlight, isn't it?
Yes. There's a poem by Byron that describes it, and how the Martians would feel tonight, if there were any of them left to feel. So we'll go no more a-roving so late into the night, though the heart be still as loving and the moon be still as bright. For the sword outwears its sheath, and the soul wears out the breast, and the heart must pause to breathe, and love itself must rest. Oh, the night was made for loving, and the day returns too soon. Yet we'll go no more a-roving by the light of the moon.
Without a word, the Earthmen stood and looked at the city. The bottle lay shattered at Sam Parkhill's feet, and the sour stench of liquor filled the cool air. The men of Earth had come to Mars.
Dimension X will continue in just a moment.
It's National Wheaties Week. Yes, the week when everybody tries Wheaties, even an orchestra leader. And here he comes from behind the scenes in radio to help celebrate National Wheaties Week, Mr. Von Dexter.
Thank you, Frank. Hello, folks. I understand this is National Wheaties Week. I kind of get a kick out of that. The only breakfast food in the world with a week of its own. And I'm here for just one thing, to ask you to try Wheaties during National Wheaties Week. There are a lot of us whose voices you've never heard on the Wheaties big parade of radio programs, you know. Backstage people.
Like musicians.
Right, Frank, like musicians. We get great pleasure from knowing you like these programs well enough to buy a box of Wheaties tomorrow. Wheaties are good. They're nice to eat. I like them. I think you will. Try them once during National Wheaties Week. Will you do that?
Vaughn, I think the folks will.
Good. Thank you. Good night.
The men of Earth came to Mars. They came because they were afraid or unafraid, because they were happy or unhappy, because they felt like pilgrims or did not feel like pilgrims. The government posters screamed, "There's work for you in the sky. See Mars!" And the men shuffled forward, all kinds of men, all coming for different reasons. The rockets came like drums beating in the night. They came like locusts, swarming and settling in blooms of rosy smoke. Mars was a distant shore, and the settlers spread upon it in waves. First the pioneers and builders, then the people of civilization. Some came because they were afraid of a coming war on Earth. Some came because they were afraid of nothing. Some came to escape from the smell of the subways and the cabbage tenements. And some came from houses like the one in Ohio. It was a good house, the house in Ohio. And for 6 years, the family had lived there contentedly, enjoying music and poetry and the rich, warm things of life. For the house had been built to be lived in the year 2020. It contained all the latest automatic devices, from talking book recorders to singing clocks.
7 o'clock, time to rise, open your eyes. Tick-tock, 7 o'clock, time to rise, open your eyes.
As the family rose and dressed, the beds whirred electronically and made themselves. In the kitchen, the stove sighed, and ejected from its warm interior 8 eggs, sunny side up, 12 bacon slices, 2 coffees, and 2 glasses of milk.
7-9, breakfast time. Come and dine. 7-9.
Beside the breakfast table, the facsimile machine clacked and deposited the morning paper on the table. The headlines today spoke ominously of the danger of a coming war, and the man frowned as he read the news.
Today is August 4th, 2026. Insurance, gas, and atom heat bills are due. And today, remember, the family has planned a picnic.
Gee, Dad, are we really going?
Sure, Timmy, why not?
It's raining out.
It's not raining where we're going, son. Now run upstairs, pack your fishing tackle. We're going on our picnic, all right.
Okay, Dad.
Bill, are you sure we ought to go?
Yes. Have you seen the headlines this morning?
Looks bad, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. The rocket's ready. All we have to do is pack and take off.
I know, but... Well, flying to Mars, it seems so crazy. Well, all right, then we'll go. Should we tell the children why we're going?
No, not yet. Let them enjoy the picnic.
The house went on with its appointed tasks.
9:15, time to clean. 9:15, time to clean.
Out of the molding darted hundreds of tiny mechanical mice, all rubber and metal. They sucked up the dust and dirt in the house and popped back into their burrows. In the walls, relays clicked, memory tapes glided under electric eyes, recorded voices moved under steel needles.
12 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 6 o'clock, tick-tock, 8 o'clock.
Evening came. In the living room, the hearth fire bloomed out of nothing, and the phonograph spoke from beside the fireplace.
Mrs. McClellan, what poem would you like to hear this evening? Mr. McClellan? Since you express no preference, I shall select at random from among your favorites. Sarah Teasdale, There Will Come Soft Rains.
There will come soft rains and the smell of the ground, and swallows circling with their shimmering sound, and frogs in the pools singing at night, and wild plum trees in tremulous white. Robins will wear their feathery fire, whistling their whims on a low fence wire, and not one will know of war, not one will care at last when it is done. Not one would mind, neither bird nor tree, if mankind perished utterly, and spring herself, when she woke at dawn, would scarcely know that we were gone.
The phonograph finished the poem, but there was no one there to hear, for the family had gone to Mars. On the Martian desert beside the highway, there rose a blare of red and yellow neon lights that spelled the death of Jeff Spender's dream. Sam's hot dog stand was what the sign read, and Sam, of course, was the same Sam Parkhill who had fought with Spender years before. 10,000 rockets were reported leaving soon for Mars, with 100,000 hungry customers, and Sam wanted to be ready for them.
Hey, look up there, Elmer.
Huh?
See that green star up there? That's Earth. Good old wonderful Earth. Makes you feel almost reverent, don't it?
Yeah.
Send me you're hungry and you're starved. Something. That's a poem I learned in school. Come on, Earth, send me your rockets. Here's Sam Parkhill with the only hot dog stand on Mars.
Sam, what if the rockets don't come? What if there's a war on Earth?
Don't worry. They're coming all right. Ain't nothing going to happen to spoil my plans, baby. I figured it all out.
Sam! Hey, Sam, look up there. Earth!
Oh, what? Oh, no.
It's catching fire. It's burning.
Oh, no, that can't be Earth. Helma, they can't do this to me. I got all our money invested in this place.
Go ahead, Sam. Switch on more lights. Turn up the music. Get the hot dogs on the fire. There'll be another batch of customers coming along in about 100 million years.
Oh, no, it couldn't be.
What a swell spot for a hot dog stand. Let you in on a little secret, Sam. This looks like it's going to be an off-season.
The light beam radio crackled with the news. By morning, the shelves of the luggage store were empty, and the rockets were blasting off, headed back to Earth. In a few days, everyone was gone, and the planet of Mars once more lay deserted and silent. And then, after all the rest had gone, one last rocket landed on Mars. A small, family-sized rocket come all the way from Earth. It seemed a long way to go for a picnic, but Dad had suggested a fishing trip, and Mother thought the whole family would enjoy a vacation. So here they were, floating down a Martian canal, with Timothy sitting in the back of the boat with Dad and Mother up front holding Alice the baby, and the deserted Martian towns drifting slowly by.
Dad,
What is it, Timmy?
when do we see the Martians? You promised we would.
Soon, Tim, soon.
Oh, but William, the last Martians died out years ago. They're a dead race now.
Not quite. Don't worry, son. I'll show you some real live Martians later on.
Gee, this is swell. I wish we didn't ever have to go home. How long can we stay?
1,000,000 years.
1,000,000 years?
Yes. It's time we told you, son. We're not going home. This is where we'll live from now on.
But what about the rocket? What about Ohio?
There's nothing there now but ruins. The last Earth radio just went off the air. That means the war is over and Earth is finished. We're going to blow up our rocket and start all over. See if we can't build a better world up here.
You mean Mars is going to be our home?
Yes. I hope you don't mind too much.
No, sir. But what about the Martians? When do we get to see them?
There they are, son. Look down at the water.
I don't see anything there.
Beside the boat. Look at the reflections in the water.
But that's us down there. Just you and me and Mom and the baby.
Yes, son. You see, we're the Martians now.
For a long, silent moment, Timmy stared down at the reflections of the family in the waters, and the Martian stared back up at him. Then he lifted his eyes to the deep ocean sky, trying once more to see Earth and the house he had always called home. But Earth was too far away, and the house was now only a heap of radioactive rubble. Only one wall remained standing, and within the wall a voice spoke again and again and again.
Not one would mind, neither bird nor tree, if mankind perished utterly, and spring herself, when she woke at dawn, would scarcely know that we were gone, that we were gone, that we were gone, that we were gone, that we were gone,
Today is
that we were
October 5th,
gone.
2026. Today is October 5th, 2026.
You have just heard The Martian Chronicles, a dramatization of highlights from the new novel by Ray Bradbury. Your narrator was Norman Rose, and featured in the cast were Inga Adams, Roger DeKoven, and Donald Buca. Music by Albert Berman, engineer Bill Chambers. Dimension X is produced by Van Woodward and directed by Jack Cuney. In a moment, we'll tell you about next week's show. And now, here is your Wheaties man, Frank Martin.
Go out and get the Wheaties. It's National Wheaties Week. Yep, this is the week everybody's trying Wheaties. See yourself how Wheaties at 7 can help at 11. A better breakfast beginning with Wheaties can help make a wonderful difference because there's a whole kernel of wheat in every Wheaties flake. So eat happy, work happy. Wheaties, breakfast of champions. Get yours. Get yours. It's National Wheaties Week.
Next week, the strange and chilling story of the parade. The parade that suddenly turned into a funeral procession for the world of tomorrow. The world of...
Dimension X.
And this is the Wheaties man, Frank Martin, inviting you to listen on Saturday, that's tomorrow night, to Joel McRae in Tales of the Texas Rangers on the Wheaties Big Parade. See you then. Remember, it's National Wheaties Week.
Swing your partners right and left. It's National Wheaties Week. Come on, everybody, to the Wheaties party. Eat a lot of Wheaties like the champions do. Dance together, cheek to cheek. This is National Wheaties Week. Eat a lot of Wheaties like the champions do. Wheaties, a breakfast of champions.
Okay, that was a pretty amazing production, don't you think? It didn't receive many accolades, nor did it gain a Hugo Award. This was mostly due to the fact that Dimension X at the time struggled to find its audience. For whatever reason, they kept moving the time for the show around, so people really never knew when or even where the show could be heard. And it's really hard to build a brand when people can't find you. The series was canceled after 50 episodes. However, other science fiction programs on both radio and television would follow, and we all know that the 1950s became the golden age of science fiction, and that continues today. The creator of the Martian Chronicles was Ray Bradbury. He's best known for his short story collections like The Martian Chronicles in 1950 and The Illustrated Man in 1951. Most of his work is speculative fiction, but he worked in other genres as well. He also wrote and consulted on screenplays and television scripts, including Moby Dick and It Came from Outer Space. Many of his works were adapted onto television and film productions, as well as comic books. The New York Times called Bradbury the writer most responsible for bringing modern science fiction into the literary mainstream. How about that? That was episode number 503, and these are the folks that made it happen. Ray Bradbury, of course, Dennis Duquesne, Leo Benson, and Allison Flores. My thanks to all of you. If you want to follow the podcast or the blog, head to ronsamazingstories.com. There you will find any of the links I mentioned and how to contact us. Do you want to help the show? The best thing you can do is to tell your friends all about it, and please leave reviews or feedback wherever you listen. Clicking that follow or like button makes us grow. Thank you for listening, and I hope you come again to find out what are Ron's Amazing Stories.
All of the vintage audio used in the podcast is believed to be in the public domain. Ron's Amazing Stories does not own the rights to any of the old-time radio used here. If you hold the rights to any of the shows played, please contact us immediately at ronsamazingstories.com.